Welcome to the SJ Childs Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and thank you for joining the SJ Childs Show today. I am running on, crazy fumes sometimes, which is sometimes how I operate best. And, other times when we feel deflated and we can't help things. And so bear with us today as we get through this conversation, but wonderful to have you here today, Randi, and I'm excited to get to know you and learn more about your story and have you share with us, kind of your journey of what brought you here.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
Thank you. So when, the mental health it's May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's so important that, in action that we put awareness is acceptance next. And so what do you think about that as far as the world where we are now?
I think there is awareness now. I think we have moved on to the stage of acceptance. I mean, obviously, some people won't be aware because they just maybe refuse. But I think that awareness has really stepped up its game, and we are on that acceptance more stage.
Yeah. And it's so nice too, so that we can find more fulfilling tribes that we fit in with and groups that understand us. And I know, going through schools for probably every single person is always difficult, and always that social, trying to fit in, trying to understand who you are, who they are. And it's not until sometimes for some of us till we get into our adulthood that we can really start to put together the pieces to even find our belonging, so to say. And so, yeah, I think it's important and so special when we get to make these kind of connections, especially when they're internationally and, we can join one another and just kind of share the same mission and message. And yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you here.
So I'm in Canada. A little bit about me. I'm an author, I'm a YouTuber, mental health advocate. I got 2 kids, a grandbaby. I got
Oh,
some cats, I got some dogs. I guess I got a husband too.
that's
And
great.
yeah, so that's kind of me in a nutshell. What brought me here? Well, it's that mental health thing, right? So I love talking about it. I love writing about it. So being here just sort of made sense, you know?
Hi, DJ. Thanks for joining us for a moment. Hopefully he'll be okay and keep moving on. Thank you so much for being here. And it'll be a great conversation to just kind of it's always nice to find someone who likes to advocate for mental health and likes to bring up the topics that maybe some people are more afraid to bring up. But then you find in so many groups that there's this, oh, I understand that. Now I can better understand how I work with people, or I better understand my child or myself. And it's through these stories and being able to share with one another that we can do that. Tell us about what got you started kind of in your advocacy journey, and what did that look like for you?
So I've been dealing with my own mental health since I was about 14. And I didn't really have a word for it back then. So remember how we had just said, the awareness thing? There was no awareness when I was a teenager. I had no idea that mental health existed, like that there could be an illness going on in my brain. Like that just wasn't a thing. Um, but eventually when I became an adult and realized, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing as a teenager. I was depressed. Oh, okay. Not everybody thinks like that. And so um then when my kid was I want to say like 9, 8, 9, something like that. It was the middle of the night, night owls, right? And he was bawling his eyes out. Why am I so different? Why do people not like me?
Hmm.
And it was breaking my heart. And that is when I thought to myself, well, why do you feel like this is not acceptable? Like, why do you feel like you couldn't tell me this before, kind of thing? Like, this is I felt like, why, what did I do? What did I do to drop the ball? And I clearly had not explained to him that I have had those feelings and thoughts too, that I have been there. And so it was okay for him to come and tell me those things. He did not have to keep it to himself. Because people can be really mean.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I need to make this space more accepting of the fact that we're going to have some really bad days. And that is the moment that I would say, started being more of an advocate for it, as opposed to how I was before, which is completely hide it, pretend like everything's okay when it's not. Yeah, that would be the moment.
Prior conditioning, and there's nothing we can do to really, we can't blame ourselves from that. It's just, but we can pinpoint the moment where we decide to change and we decide to put another foot forward in our mindset, the most important thing, to really put into play like what really matters. And it's so hard, especially when you first are raising. I have a stepdaughter, so I raised a child differently the first time than with my, second two biologically. And in that learned so many lessons of what not to take from my own childhood and supersede over a child. But I think that we just do that automatically. It's ingrained in us to do that conditioning.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really hard.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you parent the way that you were parented, generally speaking. Like, that is your basis.
Yeah.
Obviously, we can learn different ways, but that is what we know. And you do what you know. And so that's kind of how I was, right? My mom didn't talk about it. She, the outside world doesn't get to know what's happening, kind of thing. So that's what I was doing until that day. And I was like, yeah, I think we got to be different now.
Absolutely. What kind of action did you put into place?
Well, the first thing was just talking to him, right? Just saying, hey, I've been there, I get it, that kind of thing. We had quite a long discussion. I was very tired. But from there, that's when I started writing about it. 2 years ago, I started my podcast talking about it. So the action was a little bit slow because I had to figure out what it was going to be, what was it going to look like. But the biggest action was simply talking to him and making him feel like it was okay to talk about it. And it was okay to talk about it anywhere, anytime, whatever. You want to tell me that you're having a real bad day when we're at the grocery store? Go ahead and tell me. That's fine.
Yeah.
If other people have a problem with it, well, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah. And it's so easy to be fearful in public, in society, that you're being judged or you're being and it's so, as you can see with someone like DJ, there often times where growing up when he was much littler, that I felt so isolated because, in the grocery store, falling on the ground, whatever would happen. And you just think, wow, am I going to make it out of this store? Like, how is this happening? And what am I doing?
Right?
But then you realize as things, and for some reason, there was this click where society thought, okay, if I see somebody with headphones on and like not these obviously, but like ear protecting or noise
the noise canceling headphones. Yeah.
Then there's some sort of like relief given to them and to me. And when he wears those things in public, it's like everyone's like, oh, look at how cute. And they just give me this whole other attitude. And it's like,
which is
the acceptance,
it's
coming
acceptance. Through. But I'm going to play devil's advocate here. It's also, what's the word I want?
Putting them on display,
putting them on display and kind of belittling, right?
Yes.
Because like, so my kid also has autism, along with the mental health issues, has a service dog now. And when we go out with the service dog, it's like, okay, yeah, give them some space, whatever, because there's a service dog. And it's like, okay, it's good in a way. But then there are those select few people that feel the need to question what the service dog is there for, and then question, do you really need that? Oh, they don't look like it. They need it, right? And it's those people. And again, it's not everybody, but none of their business.
Yeah. And it's great when kids are safe to ask questions and get that. But adults, I mean, it's okay to be curious, and it's best to, if you are what I had this little great quote: when in question, put kindness in action,
Oh, I
right?
like
Like
that. Yeah,
just
because
be
it's
kind.
yeah, because it's not that we're opposed to questions. By all means, that's how we learn.
Yeah.
It's the questions after questions in that tone of voice that, the person's not really believing you.
Yeah.
Or, like it's hard to put it into words, but there
Yeah.
is that certain way that somebody asks or tone of voice that they use that's like, wow,
Yeah.
okay, you can walk away now.
And
But just questions is fine, especially from kids. I absolutely never have an issue with that because that's how they learn. But yeah, even adults, if they have a question and that's it, then because there's some people, oh, what's the dog for? Oh, it's for autism. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know they had dogs for that. Cool. And they walk away.
yeah,
No
exactly.
problem. No problem.
Exactly. And where did you guys get the dog training done? There in Canada? And
Yeah. So there's a few different organizations, but the wait list is really long. So we went through a private company that trains dogs in London, Ontario. And now I think 5 years ago now. I
oh
think we've
wow,
had them for
that's
5 years.
great.
Yeah.
And how's that process been for families that might be interested in something? Has it been really helpful?
Um,
What are like the perks, if you will?
yeah. So I mean, pets are great in general for
Mm-hmm.
mental health. Um, I used to, when I was having bad times, I used to take my kitty cats and
Oh
go
yeah.
and, snuggle them and love them. So it depends on what you need it for, right? So it could just be that having a pet works. Could just be a dog gets you out of the house every day to take them for a walk. For service animals, for my kid, it was that crowds were just a lot. So he's there for when a panic attack happens and a meltdown might happen. So he's there. So it really, yeah, it depends on what you're looking for. So in Canada, there is the Lions Foundation. They do service dogs. You have to apply, waitlist or whatever. And then we went through Tame Service Center. So we had to buy the dog. We did oodles of fundraising. It was a lot of work. I totally love Freddie though. He is just the best dog ever. Um, so it really, yeah, it depends on what you need, but I think everybody should have a dog or a cat, whether or not they're a working animal or not.
Yeah, I agreed. We actually got a Akbash, which is a sheepdog, and he was going through training when DJ was little, and they worked together. But he just never bonded with him. He never had the bond with the dog. I did, so it's my dog.
Right? I know.
Yeah.
For
But
like Freddie, that's the dog's name. Um, he's bonded, I think, with all of us in the house
yeah.
because my husband and I are usually the ones that walk him, especially in the winter. My kid's like, I'm not going out in the snow. And I feed him. Right.
Yes.
So he loves me and
Yes.
I love him, but he's been sleeping with Love in his room more. So
Love
the
that.
bond is so important though.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah, we were, a little bummed out because we really, at the time, DJ was an eloper and he would, and not from home. Thank heavens, right? That's a safe
We had
place.
that happen
That's a safe
once.
place. Yeah. Not from home, but he was eloping from schools. He, like I said, if we would go to grocery store, out of the parking lot, out of the anywhere,
Yeah.
out of the car. And so were trying to train our dog in that. And then we got Great Pyrenees after that. And we found just the most loving, most loving
Oh,
giant dogs ever. So yeah, now we have, and so I agree. It's just like so cathartic when you can go out and your dog puts their head on your
I
lap and you just
know.
they put all the pressure on you and you're just like, oh, thank you.
I love them. I
Yeah,
love them. I
yeah.
love them. So
They are
snuggly and yeah.
they are the best. What got you into the idea of authoring a book and what did that look like? Books, dog to book, right?
Dog to book, yeah. So my very first book, I published that in, I think it was 2018, 2017, 2018. And that came from cleaning my basement. So I was cleaning my basement out, found all of these poems that I had written as a teenager during the time that I was super depressed as a teenager. So I was like, oh, these are pretty good. I don't really want to throw them out, but I don't want them to sit in my basement. Publish a book. I always said I was going to. So that's how the first one came.
Oh.
And after doing that, I was like, this is so much fun. I want to keep doing this. And so I just kept going. My next book actually comes out on Saturday. So.
Oh, congratulations. Good timing.
Right? I know. Yeah.
Oh, well, what's it about? What's it going to, yeah, what can we look for?
Yeah, it's called Goodbye Too Soon. Mental health. So Goodbye Too Soon. It is about my brother's death by drug overdose. It comes out on his 2-year anniversary, which is May 20th. You could pre-order it now though. So the story goes through, it starts with when I got the phone call to find out that he had died. And having to actually tell my mom, which was really, really hard. And then from there, it goes into personalizing Brandon, that's his name, because I think a lot of problem around, well, mental health in general, but addiction specifically, is that people who have an addiction, they're addicts. You got to cross the street, don't talk to them, they're addicts. Right? You hear that all the time. So there's an entire chapter to personalize him, to make people realize they're not addicts. They are people who have family who love them. They have their own likes and, wants and needs and dreams, all that stuff. And then it also delves into the DSM-5 with the diagnostical criteria for what is an addiction, risk factors of an addiction. So it's a lot more than just my story.
Wow.
And it really is written for families of those that have an addiction so that they can understand, first off, obviously, that they're not alone, but that it's okay sometimes when you have to step back and love them from a distance and set boundaries in place. And for those who have lost a loved one to an addiction, it's kind of a different grieving process than losing a grandparent who has lived their long life. Yeah. So that's in there as well.
Moving and so inspiring and touching. And, it's people like you who could share their stories and share their perspective and aspects of those things, like I said before, that other people can identify and really pulls them through sometimes. And I'm sure that you've had that same thing for you in a moment, maybe podcast or book or whatever that you like, sometimes even watching shows there, you can just get these like aha moments from the information you're taking in, and being able to share it. I mean, must have been really scary for you at first. And, but in the same time, how do you feel now that it's going to be coming out and it's out there?
I am super excited. I'll say the first book I put out was a little bit more scary, but because this is, I don't even know what number now.
Yeah.
But quite a few later, it's not so scary. It's more just exciting.
Good.
The scariest part for this book, because it shares not just my story, but my family.
Yeah.
Was that my mom at first wasn't so on board. Yeah. And I think for her, and this is just my thinking on it, my assumption, because she didn't really specify, but I think for her, it was because, her son died by a drug addiction. Remember how I said they're an addict? She didn't want people to remember Brandon as being an addict or to see her as a bad mom who just let her son do drugs. Because there are parents that, when I say he started his addiction as a teenager, well, he was let to do those? No, he didn't have permission to do it. And so it took my mom a little bit of time to kind of wrap her head around that this is not belittling his life. This is not um against her or anything.
Mhm.
This is information, and it's actually enlightening and uplifting about his life.
Yeah. And helpful for others to maybe identify if their loved one might be struggling and then how to get help for them. And that's
Yeah,
so important that we, as advocates, that's our mission. And that's what
exactly.
that's what we're out here doing. I completely agree.
Yeah, my mom's totally on board now. She actually was like, "What are we doing for your book launch on Saturday?" I was like,
Wow.
"I don't know. I don't really like, I'll probably go live on social media, but I was like, I don't know." And she goes,
That's great.
"Well, we should bring a copy of your book and go to the graveyard. And you can, put the book down beside Brandon and take some pictures." And I was like, "Oh, you're
That's
into this now, Mom."
That's so thoughtful of her.
Yeah.
My husband has a great analogy, and I have, like I said, I have a 23-year-old, 11, and 13. So there's a big difference in where
Yeah.
parenting started and where it is continuing.
Yep.
And there was a time where we really had to understand that for ourselves, that we did everything that we could possibly always do. Mind you, she is still living. I don't mean to, take in any way of that away, but that she is doing her own thing and is going to his analogy. Let me get back to the important part is that as parents, we are the bow and the children are the arrows. And it doesn't matter how crafted either of us are, how much work we've been put into, how much effort or anything. Once the bow, excuse me, releases the arrow, anything can change the trajectory, can cause it to end up anywhere else than where we had planned on it
Yep.
landing. But it's not our fault. Like, we can't ever take any responsibility for that. So, and maybe not any. I probably should be careful with my words with that. But
I do know what you mean, though.
yeah, thank you. Good. And so I think that's beautiful too. It really helped me to take a deep breath and realize that number one, there's different biology at play. Number two, there's like, it's just when you give all you can and you give from the only place you know how to give from, all you can do is hope that it's received well and
Mhm.
support from there. And like you
Yeah.
said, whether it's supporting from loving from far away at a distance because you need to, because of the instability of the presence that it causes. And yeah, there's a lot to be thought through in that process.
Exactly. Yeah, and I read somewhere, I probably should have saved it, but I read somewhere, or maybe I heard on like a talk show or something, anyways, that it was about parents kind of letting go of their guilt,
Mm.
and that parents seem to think that they craft their kids 100%. And so you must have done something wrong as a parent if your kid ended up doing whatever. Um, but what in reality is that parents play a very small role once they get to a certain age. Once they get to a certain age, usually that, say 10, 11, especially the teenage 13, 14,
Yes.
as they get older, parents' role becomes very small, and the friendships that they have at that time become much more significant. And what society as a whole is telling them becomes much more significant.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not to say that parents have no role. I mean, that would suck because I'm a parent
Mhm.
too. But our role becomes increasingly smaller as they age.
Yeah.
So, we have to kind of hope that we did as best we could aiming that arrow as they're younger. But
Mhm.
there is, like you said, there's so much things that could happen. A wind can just sweep in at any moment
Any
and
moment.
change the trajectory.
Yeah.
Love the analogy.
Good. He's amazing. Let me tell
Yeah,
you.
it's good.
I'm so happy I have that guy in my life. It's really interesting when we can especially then take it to the next level in a sense that I kind of started out the same way, children's books. Not well, I started out with children's books, but and then, had a podcast and wanted to really like bring my message to a different audience, a whole different perspective, and bring people in that I saw value in, that I knew would bring value to my audience. How did that look for you in building your podcast? And what does that look like?
So yeah, I actually have a couple of shows now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my first one is called Write or Die Show. And I knew that I wanted to do a podcast. I had dabbled in a few other ones that didn't really last. They were just like, I'm not feeling it. This one though, been going for 2 years strong. So this one's
Yay.
good. But so I was like, I know I want it to be about mental health, but I'm trying to figure out what do I do because I don't want it to just be me talking. And so I was talking to somebody I met at a business group, and they're like, well, you're an author. Why don't you just interview other authors? I'm like, that's a really good idea. All right. And so that's how the basis of Write or Die Show came. I interview
Love
other
that.
authors and we talk about mental health from a personal perspective, because that is, I think, the most important way of bringing the acceptance around is having real life people talk about their experience.
Mhm.
We can read from a book all we want, and please do go pick up my book. But we can book learn lots of things. We can go to school and learn lots of things, but until we're hearing real people tell their story, that
Yeah.
acceptance piece is going to be missing. So that's how that one started.
And then what else do you have going on?
So after that, last year I started then I started what I'm reading. So I do book reviews.
Okay.
And I figure if I'm already writing the book review on my blog, then I'll just make a little short podcast about it too. So what I'm reading, there's just super short. It's like, I think the longest one is 3.5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But they're super short ones so that you can just get a taste of what that book is. So it's just the review of the book for that one. Any genre. I've done kids books, I've done nonfiction, fantasy, horror, all sorts of different ones on there. It's pretty awesome. But then last year I wanted to kind of expand as well. And so I started, it's called Reader's Intrigue. And it's to intrigue readers. So authors come on the show. It's they just record themselves really reading the first chapter of their book.
Oh, wow.
And that way you get that whole first chapter. Am I intrigued by this? Am I going to love it? Yes, I am. Click the link, buy their book.
Great.
Yeah, so that was that one, because I know as an author, it's so hard marketing. Marketing sucks.
Oh my gosh. That's why we took a different road. It was like, nope, this is not going to pan out. Yeah. And the same thing. I have 7 children's books, and it's like, okay, well, what's next?
Exactly. Writing is fun, but marketing,
yeah. It has been well, and it luckily for me, it was a chance that I was this kind of the author that was going on to other podcasts, and then somebody was like, "You've got to do your own podcast, Sarah. You've got to do this." So I was like, "Okay, I will." And the same with you.
I love it.
I know,
I love it.
It's so amazing, and the guests are so diverse, and I think that such a beautiful array of minds to just get, information, and it's just the best thing. I wish I would have known about this like before it existed and thought of it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so much fun. And there's so many people out in the world, right? So there's always going to be an audience for something.
Yeah. And authors love to tell their stories.
Oh, yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And podcasters at that, right? We love to be storytellers and be able to tell our stories. So that's really fantastic. I've really enjoyed our time together today. Thank you so, so much for coming on. And what is in the future for you after this book coming out? Anything else on the horizon?
Of course, I already have other things.
Yes.
So the big focus has been on Goodbye Too Soon and pushing that out for Saturday. But I'm making another kids book right now. It's about my 3-legged cat. And it's all rhyming, of course. So the story itself is written. I got to work on the artwork. I feel like with kids book, that's the hardest part for me.
Yeah.
And I have another kids book that's been written for like a year now, but my kid is doing the artwork for it, and he is slow as molasses.
Yep.
But
I went that road.
Yep. But it's coming along slowly. So that one will be coming up as well. It's the next Woofy book. So I already have one Woofy book out. This will be the next one. And I'm writing another nonfiction right now. Well, co-authoring it with he was in my business group before as a videographer, and so we're writing about mental health in the Bible and our stories.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah.
I love that. Well, good luck to everything moving forward, and please keep in touch so that I can, help support, promote it on my
Yeah.
my end and everything. I'm the person to go to when you want things shared ultimately everywhere. So
Sure,
I
sure,
love it. I
sure.
love it. I love it. There's nothing wrong with igniting someone else's flame will not lessen mine. So yeah,
Exactly.
gotta just keep on doing it. So, yeah, thank you so much for your time today. I will make sure that all of your links are in the show notes. Do you have a website or any socials that you want to share, though?
Of course. So my website is rbwriting.ca. And I also have writeorddieshow.ca. So you can see all the shows.
Great.
And then from there, I'm also on Facebook, RB Writing, and Instagram, Randy Lee Bowslaugh, TikTok, Randy Lee Bowslaugh. I'm on Clapper now, a little bit. It's new.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
gonna have
know.
to figure that. I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Yep, yeah, it's a new one. So I'm on there too, Randy Lee Bowslaugh. And of course, everything is on Amazon. I have the author page
Mhm.
on there too.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time today. And I just wish you the best of luck and give your mom a big hug for us and our audience for being so supportive for you this Saturday. And we wish you the best of luck. And I hope we can
Thank
stay in
you.
touch, Randy.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely.
you.